Bishop, welcome to the Caribbean.
Yeah.
I have been here for the past 6 months.
I booked, I said I'm coming, and I'm glad you waited.
No, I told you. You told me wait for me because we've been trying to meet for a very long time.
Zimbabwe, we missed each other.
Zimbabwe, we missed each other. You were in Namibia, I was in the north. You were in south, we couldn't meet. And here we are in Jamaica.
First time.
First time meeting. But I've seen the great work you're doing.
You're doing better than me.
No.
Me, maybe I'm doing the same thing, but different spaces.
No.
But,
Bishop is more spiritual. I listen to Bishop and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Africans belong to Africa. I lived in Europe for some years. I never became a European. How does a European come to Africa and become an African? Put it on record. You can spend 20, 30 years in Europe. You will never be a European young lady. You remain an African. Few bureaus will walk out, few people from Netherlands would come to Africa and then say, we are Africans. Wow. And Africans being religious, we easily forgive and accept them as ours. May God bless you. And then others will say, Maponga G, you're speaking so much anger about money. So you want lots of money, huh? You're preaching the prosperity gospel. Hey, I don't have a problem. Me, I want money and lots of it. If you don't like it, may the Lord grant you also the desires of your heart. And if poverty is your portion, please may you have it in double portion.
This man is so deep. I feel like you're so deep in terms of the message that you used to share. But why do you call yourself a bishop, though?
Nah, those are things what people tell you, man. My name is Maponga Joshua. These titles are what people call you. And sometimes you outgrow being a prefect in creche. And then you become a head boy in high school. Then you outgrow that and you become a captain in college. And for people to keep on reminding you that, no, you must be the head boy. You must be the class prefect.
Yep.
Yeah, and I felt maybe as I was growing up, particularly in my spiritual inquiries, that maybe I was bringing the whole title into a disrepute.
Yep.
Bishops have a certain way of doing things, speaking, dressing, and socializing. So when I started getting into the cultural space, I felt maybe some of the pastors in particular and some of the members were becoming uncomfortable. So I decided to drop that title for the sake of sanity. Their sanity, not mine. Yeah. But I trained for theology for the best part of my life. Wow. It's not like I just woke up in the morning and I said I'm a bishop, and I did about 33 years plus on the church space. So yeah.
I mean, we are in the Caribbean, so let's talk about the Caribbean. You're supposed to be out of Jamaica by now. But you're back. How did you get back here?
Oh, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. And I think when we look at Africa and its challenges, it's one thing. But when you look at the Caribbean and its subtle, semi-civilized, first world mindset. I mean, when you're coming here, you think you're going to be meeting progressive people who, Gavi is coming from here, Mali is coming from here, from this region. So you'd expect some certain amount of sensitivity to geopolitical, historical disadvantaging. But to have black people now sitting in positions of authority and reinforcing with power and force the draconian laws of colonialism, unbelievable. So I came in here because I was avoiding the visa ports, both in Europe, Middle East, and in America. I said I would get to Jamaica and use a non-visa route. And the non-visa route for me was either Johannesburg, Paris, as long as I was going to be remaining in the airport for about 6 hours, then connect Paris, Cuba, Kingston. Or I would have gone through, London, non-starter. Miami, non-starter. New York, non-starter, so I opted for Sao Paulo, Panama, into here. After getting here, the conference finished on Friday. So Saturday there was no flight out. So I opted, let me get a flight into Dominican Republic, because then I could connect quickly into Guarulhos, and from Guarulhos straight into Sao Paulo, and I'm out of here. And to my shock and dismay, I was detained in Dominican Republic for 4 days.
4 days?
Denied food, water to bath and to drink. I was denied a bed to sleep. I literally sat on the bench for 4 days. I bought 4 tickets to go back home, and all those tickets expired with their instructions that go and get something like this. I go and I make an internet, phone my wife and phone people, buy tickets, I come and bring them. No, the airline does not want to carry you. Next story, Panama wants a visa, you are supposed to go there. But I don't need a visa according to the documentation. Brazil needs a visa. Ultimately, no, it's our law that we must take you back to the country where you came from. Then you can restart your trip from there because you're using 2 different flights. So you can, some stupid little story that is unheard of. And only to come back into Jamaica and be locked in for another 2 hours plus $400 to buy a new visa to come back into the country. So as of today, I've had to apply for a visa altogether into Brazil, though on paper it's not required, but the airlines want it, so we must apply for it. Went to Panama to get a documentation from the embassy, though we don't need it, but the airlines want it. So when I get those documents, I hopefully can begin to move away from here and go back home. But if anyone is coming to Dominican Republic, at your own risk. They are racist, they're very segregative, they are horrible, there's language barrier, they are just terrible people.
How was the experience like being locked up for 4 days, man?
I think it is slave trade on steroids. That you can be having credit cards in your hands. You can be a door. Literally from where they locked me up, the door which was selling food was like where that tree is. And they would put guards here not to make sure that I don't go there and buy food.
My goodness.
And just sit there. My embassy called. They wrote a letter. I can show you the letter to release, but they just said their own ambassador for Dominican Republic, who is in Cuba, liaised with my embassy to say release that man. They still refuse. So I became a prisoner in the Caribbean. And where I was, by the way, Domingo means the dogs of God. And this is the place where also the slaves would arrive and be kept in prisons there, and then distributed in parts of the Caribbean, including here where we are. So I felt that maybe it was more as a spiritual thing that I had to experience this, but it was horrible. It was horrible.
But you came to Jamaica with a visa too, right?
Yes.
And then when you arrived, the same visa should have allowed you to enter again.
And again, this whole visa thing is a big scam. It's just a polite way of managing, sanctioning people, restricting movement of people, prioritizing your own national interest above everyone else's interests, and making sure that Africans don't speak to each other. Because if you notice the countries that have most of the visa restrictions, like when I was there, do you have an American, because they said, do you have an ID? And guess me, being me, I produced my South African ID. No, do you have another ID? Then I produced my Zimbabwean ID. No, these are not IDs. On my face.
So what is an ID?
No, an ID is an American ID, a European ID, a British ID, or a Canadian ID. Those are the IDs. Those are IDs. The rest of this is not ID. That's not ID. But he said he wanted an ID. And me being me, I said, how can you say another sovereign country's ID is not an ID? When you ask for an ID, and what do you think this is? It's not written national identity card? No, when we talk about ID, we only mean America, Britain, and Canada.
I think it's extremely hell to travel in the Caribbean as an African.
And West, I think our brothers here and sisters have been brainwashed also to be suspicious towards their own brothers. And it's sad, because just imagine, The Caribbean in its totality, maybe it houses a couple of millions of people. If you can take the amount of human resource in the Caribbean on its own, and they could focus at servicing Africa, there's no one in the Caribbean who should be out without a job. Highly skilled job. America is harvesting from the Caribbean. Europe is harvesting from the Caribbean. Imagine the amount of resources we have in Africa. If the Caribbean could just open its borders and allow the trade of uranium, of gold, of platinum, power stations, allow the ships. And this really pisses me off, sorry for the language, that during slave trade, ships docked at Ghana there, docked at Gorée Island, docked at St. Helena, and moved straight to the Caribbean. Immediately slave was closed. To come back on the same route, you must do an extra 35,000 kilometers to the left and to the right. And to date, as we speak right now, there's no direct flight between all the islands and Mother Africa. Yet Gavi, yet Mali, we're all talking about repatriation and moving Africa. How do you move back home when you don't even have the transport? Or the routes. I'm looking at all the Caribbean ministers. I'm looking at all the Caribbean presidents, all the Caribbean governors. You must be sick in your heads and wasting time sitting in your offices, smoking and burning taxpayers' money when you cannot deliver the tears of the ancestors who sleep on these grounds, who all they wanted was to go back home. And you'd sit in office and make sure that the citizens, the young people, the young generation, will not even know which route to go to Africa. Imagine a high school boy who simply wants to trace his routes, and he's told how many visas do you need just to get across the ocean. Why can't we make it easy? Imagine your son coming here to study, my daughter coming here to study, bringing me home a Jamaican husband, going there, bringing home a Zulu girl. Cultural integration would begin to neutralize this issue. But until we begin to have this conversation, and I'm glad me and you, as you representing the North, me representing the South, we're here to come and tell the fellow Caribbeans that you don't need to be strangers. We are your brothers and we are your sisters.
We are not criminals. See, anytime I pick up my passport that I'm about to travel within the Caribbean, I get scared. And I've been talking about it. People even felt like I was making their countries look bad. But I'm so glad that you also experienced
I'm not making their country look bad. I'm just relating what happened. And the beautiful part is that when you travel and you don't have a big poster on your forehead that says Bishop Maponga J, and with a CV of what he has done, what he's doing, the media and movies and the amount of influence that he has, then all of a sudden people must now treat you nicely because you are carrying the credentials. Exactly. Okay, so what happens to the common person?
Exactly. This is what I've been preaching. That I know all the people that will make my travel easy for me, but I'm not interested. Recently, something happened to me. I was going to Antigua and Bermuda, and then I applied for a visa. They didn't even check. All they saw was an African.
This is 2 days ago.
This is 2 days ago. All they saw was an African applying for a visa, and they denied me. Like, my $150 was just gone. And funny enough, I posted it, and the Prime Minister himself came to respond that you got this reaction because recently I think over 100 Africans came into our shores and they were illegal. And because of that, any African that applies for a visa, we deny. I'm like, you deny without even checking.
It's stereotyping. Stereotyping, and they're already wired like that. They already with this. You see, when I lambast my African political leaders, that you are Uncle Toms, you are stooges who are managing the colonial system to benefit to you, to the sacrificing of the community that is under you. Because under common normal circumstances, it does not make sense that an all-black government, all black, could sit around and manage the same colonial rules that oppressed them. Now they are responsible for managing the same rules. How can you expect the laws that oppressed you to liberate you? How does it happen? The man that raped you and abused you, he comes around and says, now I'll help you to heal. I'll help you to heal. Don't worry, I'll clean you up. I'll get a doctor for you. That's sadistic of the highest order. If you have done what you have done, just step away. Let me hang around my own relatives and fix this mess. But for us to think that the Western world and the Northern world will have solutions for the Caribbean, will have solutions for Africa, we must be smoking. And I'm glad we're in Jamaica. We must be smoking something very strong.
After being here, what would you say that will be a solution for both Africa and the Caribbean?
The first idea that I was talking to Brother Clinton here, my beautiful friend that I've found here for the past few days, is to start organizing African games between the Caribbean and Africa, business symposiums, young entrepreneurs who can begin to come across the ocean, transport, transactions, commodity, movement. But for a start, even cultural exchange programs. I want to actually open up a cultural center in Jamaica here and then call other African spiritual people to service the black community within the Caribbean who badly need spiritual guidance in one way or the other, which has gone far into Catholicism, far into Rastafarianism and etc., far into Christianity and etc. And Jamaica on its own has the highest population of churches in the Caribbean. How many per square kilometer? No, so immediately these people are all churched people. Guess where they want to go?
Heaven?
You can't talk anything to someone who wants to talk about the state of the dead when they can't even understand the state of the living. Their minds are on some pie that is in the sky. They can't see the resources that are in their hands. They keep on praying that God must come through. But God is knocking at the door and they won't open the door. So it's a mess. It's a mess, and I think it's high time, and I'm glad we're here to tell the Caribbean community, don't listen to politicians. There are more business opportunities in Africa. All you young ladies who think that there are no men to marry, hey, before you give up on life, get a passport.
Exactly.
Am I lying?
No, you're not lying
Go get
at all.
yourself in Nigeria and Ghana and Zimbabwe some nice green bananas, some Zulu chief and strong young men, and get yourself married. And vis-a-vis, this is the kind of, we have come here to tell you that you can come to, and this is a beautiful story, I think.
Yep.
We have come here to say there are people here. And we can go back there and say, we saw them, they are alive there. And we hope that through these conversations, they could begin some...
And what is that one common thing that you found that is so similar with Africa, in the Caribbean?
Oh, well, the old people that I've been living with are very grounded, very grounded. They feed you like you are going out of, it's going out of fashion. And they are highly spiritual. And I think at a deeper sense, the lack of identity or the blurred memories of distant past that they have, the little that they have left of what identity is all about, now they're really holding on to that. And I find that their ways of cooking could be the same. Founded some yam here, found some plantain here also. Though in the south we only have cassava and lots of fruits here. And highly spiritual. Jamaica is highly spiritual, and I was greatly blessed. I did St. Anne's, I did St. Martin, St. Thomas, and I did Gavi, I did Mali, I did the Rastafarian community. Quite a learning experience for me.
Your final message to Africans watching you right now?
We are one people. We are one nation, separated by the great ocean. Mabele Made, the woman with the big breast, who feeds both children on either sides of the river. So the Caribbeans can breastfeed. The Africans can breastfeed. We are one nation. Let's build the Africa that we want, and the Caribbean must be the 55th country on Africa Union.
Thank you. I will see you in Africa. This is just an introduction.
Yeah.
WODEMAYA.